I was folding laundry when I learned I was dead. It wasn't dramatic. No phone call, no police officer at the door. Just a soft buzz from my phone sitting on the kitchen counter, lighting up the room like it always did, and a message preview that made my hands go numb before I even read the full text. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your son must be devastated. I stared at the screen, waiting for my brain to correct whatever mistake it was making. Loss? Son? Devastated? I was very much alive, 58 years old, standing in my own house, breathing, thinking, folding my own clothes. I opened the message. It was from Marissa, a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Then another notification came in, and another. Then my phone began buzzing nonstop, vibrating against the counter like something was trying to escape from it. Condolences, prayers. She was such a strong woman. If you need anything, we're here. Gone too soon. Someone even sent a black and white photo of me they'd pulled from Facebook, already framed in a digital mourning post. My heart started pounding so hard I had to sit down. I opened social media with shaking fingers, and there it was. A post from my son. My son! My beloved mother passed peacefully yesterday evening. She was my best friend, my guiding light, my everything. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. There was a candle emoji at the end. I felt something inside me crack, slow and deep, like ice breaking under a frozen lake. Peacefully. Yesterday evening. I had spoken to him yesterday evening. He'd called me to ask where the original deed to the lake house was. I remembered because I teased him about finally caring about paperwork instead of parties. Now, according to the internet, I was dead. I didn't cry at first. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry yet. I felt cold, the kind of cold that starts in your chest and spreads outward, numbing everything it touches. I scrolled. There was an obituary already published on a local site, my full name, my birth date, a death date listed as 2 days earlier. Cause of death? Sudden illness. There was even a quote attributed to my son. She would want us to remember her with love, not sadness. I laughed. It came out wrong, sharp, almost hysterical. I was alone in my kitchen, surrounded by proof that the world believed I no longer existed. And my son was the one who killed me. Not with poison, not with a knife, with paperwork. I stood up so fast the chair fell over behind me. I didn't pick it up. I walked straight to my home office and opened the filing cabinet I'd kept meticulously organized for decades. Insurance policies, property deeds, trust documents, wills. Everything I had built after my husband died young. Everything I had protected, saved, grown, and everything my son had been waiting for. My hands moved automatically as I checked each folder, my mind racing faster with every missing document. The original will was gone. The trust paperwork for my retirement account was gone. The folder labeled, "In case of emergency," gone. I sank into the chair this time for real. He hadn't just faked my death impulsively. He'd planned this, carefully, quietly, for a long time. I thought back over the last year, the sudden concern about my health, the questions about beneficiaries, the way he'd insisted on driving me to appointments I never asked him to attend, the time he'd suggested I simplify my estate so there wouldn't be confusion later. I had been flattered. I had been proud. I had told people my son was finally growing up. I pressed my palms against my face and forced myself to breathe. This wasn't grief. This was betrayal, the kind that changes how you see every memory that came before it. I could have driven straight to the police station. I could have called a lawyer. I could have exposed him immediately. But as I sat there, staring at the empty folders, something else began to rise beneath the shock. A calm, a terrifying, steady calm. If my son thought I was dead, then for the first time in my life, I could see exactly who he really was when he believed there would be no consequences. And I decided in that moment that I would let him think he had won. I turned my phone off. Not airplane mode, fully off. Then I packed a small bag, clothes, my passport, cash I'd hidden years ago for emergencies I never imagined would involve my own child. Before I left the house, I stood in the hallway and looked at the family photos lining the walls. Birthday parties, graduation smiles, a young boy sitting on my shoulders at the beach, his hands gripping my hair as if I were the safest place in the world. I stayed in that back pew as the pastor spoke my name like it belonged to someone else. He talked about my kindness, my resilience, how I had given everything for my family. People nodded, some dabbed at their eyes. Others glanced toward my son with admiration, as if he were the living proof of a life well spent. I watched him bow his head at all the right moments. He'd always been good at that, performing. The music swelled softly, the kind meant to loosen tears, and memories began to play on a screen at the front of the chapel. Photos I hadn't approved, pictures taken without asking, cropped, filtered, edited into a story that suited him. There I was at 40, smiling beside him at his college graduation. There I was again, holding a birthday cake, cropped so you couldn't see how he'd been texting through the entire song. There was even a photo of me standing beside the lake house, arms crossed, looking proud. He used that one twice. When the slideshow ended, my son stood and walked to the podium. The room went quiet. "I don't know how to do this," he said, voice cracking perfectly on cue. "I don't know how to say goodbye to the woman who gave me everything." Everything. My fingers curled into my lap so tightly my nails bit into my skin. "She was more than a mother," he continued. "She was my best friend. She trusted me with her life, with her legacy." That word landed heavy. Legacy. I felt something shift inside me, a final click like a lock turning. Because that's when I knew. He wasn't just mourning me, he was announcing ownership. "She prepared me for this moment," he said, lifting his eyes to the ceiling. "She made sure I'd be taken care of, that her wishes would be honored." A murmur of approval rippled through the room. I leaned back slightly, letting the shadows hide my face as I watched him lie over my body. When he finished, he stepped away from the podium and took his seat in the front row, directly beside the woman who now wore my rings. Not mine literally, but the style. Gold band, small diamond, something tasteful, something expensive. She rested her hand on his knee and squeezed. I wondered how long after my death that had happened. Minutes? Hours? The service ended with prayer. People lined up to approach the casket. Some cried openly, some whispered private goodbyes. I didn't go near it. I didn't need to, because the real moment wasn't here. It was coming. After the burial, after the reception, after the will reading. That's where he thought the real reward would be. I followed the procession at a distance, leaving before anyone could notice me slipping away. I drove myself to the attorney's office downtown, parking across the street and waiting. I had already called him the night before. He hadn't recognized my voice at first. He would never forget it again. The will reading was scheduled that afternoon, immediate, unusual, rushed. Another red flag. By the time my son arrived with his girlfriend, his friends, and a couple of distant relatives who suddenly found time to show up, the room was buzzing with expectation. I stood in the hallway outside, heart pounding for the first time since this began. Not fear, anticipation. The attorney opened the door and cleared his throat. "We're ready," he said. I nodded and followed him inside. The room fell silent in stages. First confusion, then disbelief, then something close to panic. My son was halfway into a chair when he froze, his body stiffening like he'd seen a ghost. His girlfriend's hand slid slowly off his arm. Someone gasped. Another person laughed nervously, as if this were some kind of tasteless joke. I walked to the empty chair at the head of the table and sat down. Alive, breathing, very much not dead. "I'm so sorry," I said softly, folding my hands in front of me. "Am I late?" My son's mouth opened. No sound came out. His face drained of color so quickly I thought he'd faint. You, this isn't funny," he whispered. "Oh, I agree. It's not funny at all." The attorney stood up. "For the record," he said carefully, "this woman is very much alive." The room stayed quiet long after they took him away. Not respectful quiet, not peaceful, the kind of silence that happens when everyone realizes they were standing on the wrong side of the truth. No one looked at me, not at first. They stared at the table, at the walls, at anything that wasn't the woman they'd just mourned and buried an hour earlier. I picked up my purse. "Well," I said gently, breaking the tension, "this has been memorable." A few people flinched. I walked past them slowly, each step deliberate, my shoes tapping against the floor like punctuation marks at the end of a very long sentence. When I reached the door, I paused and turned back. "To those of you who truly believed I was gone," I said, "thank you for coming. It means more than you know." Then I looked directly at my son's girlfriend. "And to those who were already celebrating," I added, "I hope the champagne was worth it." Her face crumpled. I left without waiting for a response. Outside, the air felt different, cleaner, lighter, like the world had shifted back into its proper place. The next few weeks were louder than I expected. The story spread fast, faster than the obituary ever did. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. Woman attends her own funeral. Son arrested after faking mother's death. Inheritance scam uncovered. They called it unbelievable. They called it shocking. They called me brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired. Reporters camped outside my house. My phone rang constantly. Distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered my number. I ignored most of it. What I couldn't ignore was the silence from my son. For the first week, there was nothing. No call, no message, no letter. Then, one afternoon, a plain white envelope arrived. No return address. I knew before I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, slightly slanted, careful, the same handwriting I'd once praised in elementary school. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. "Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you should. I don't even know what to say. I keep replaying it over and over. The funeral, your voice, the way you looked at me like you didn't recognize who I'd become. Maybe that's because you don't. I'm sorry. I know that word isn't enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know I broke something that can't be repaired. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know I never thought you'd disappear forever. I thought this would just be paperwork, temporary. I thought I could fix it later." I folded the letter slowly. Temporary, as if erasing a person could ever be temporary. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something I'd avoided my entire life. Loving someone doesn't mean saving them from the consequences of their choices. The court proceedings dragged on for months. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, attempted financial exploitation. Each charge felt heavier than the last. I attended every hearing. I sat in the front row, composed, silent, watching my son sit at the defense table, smaller than I remembered him ever being. He never looked at me, not once. When sentencing day came, the judge spoke carefully, choosing words that balanced law with disappointment. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment, she said. This was a calculated betrayal of trust. She looked directly at him. You did not just attempt to steal money, she continued. You attempted to erase a human being. The sentence wasn't the longest possible, but it was enough. Enough time to sit with what he'd done. Enough time for the world to move on without him. When it was over, I stood up before anyone else could speak to me and walked out. I didn't cry in the courtroom. I cried in my car. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears slipping down my face as I rested my forehead against the steering wheel, mourning not the son I had, but the one I thought I'd raised. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. Healing isn't like that. Some mornings I still wake up reaching for my phone, half expecting to see another message announcing my death. Some nights I replay his childhood laughter and wonder where things went wrong. But something inside me changed. I stopped apologizing for protecting myself. I stopped feeling guilty for surviving. The lake house is quiet now, peaceful. It belongs to children who needed it more than he ever did. I visit sometimes, sitting on the dock, watching the water ripple under the sun. I ended it quietly. No speeches, no interviews, no dramatic final scene. One morning I woke up, made myself a cup of tea, and watched the sun come through the kitchen window like it had every day before I was declared dead. I sold the house, not out of anger, not to erase memories, but because I wanted a place that didn't echo. I moved somewhere smaller, closer to the ocean, where no one knew my name and no one cared about my past. I planted herbs on the balcony. I learned the names of the neighbors' dogs. I let myself exist without explanation. I never visited him. That was the hardest decision I made. Not because I didn't love him, but because love without boundaries had nearly destroyed me. I wrote one final letter instead. Not to accuse, not to punish, just to tell the truth. That I hoped he would become someone better than the man who buried his own mother alive. I never asked for a reply. Sometimes at night, I think about the woman I was before all this, the one who believed love could fix anything, the one who thought being a good mother meant sacrificing herself in silence. She's gone now, and that's okay, because the woman who remains knows her worth, her limits, and her right to be alive in every sense of the word. I was declared dead once. It will never happen again.